I mean, most people set a goal and it's kind of pie in the sky and they don't have any math or metrics to back it up. And then
Mhm.
when I look at their goal, it's usually one of two things. It's like, oh, geez, didn't know that we had to do that. Or two, like, oh. I've been helping a lot of consultants lately. Fantastic results, like crazy. It's easy for me to do. I can spot all this stuff for them. We had one gentleman go from 700,000 to 920,000 in 6 weeks in revenue in his business.
Wow.
So instead of, netting out 145,000 on the bottom line, now you're netting out 350. For a small business owner, that's life-changing for them. I said, "Do you know what it's costing you to actually make coffee?" So I said, "It's 30 minutes a day." He said, "Yeah." I said, "That's 2.5 hours a week. That's 120 hours a year." And when we ran the numbers, he was like, "You gotta be kidding me." It was like,
All right, everybody, we got another episode on the books here. I got my buddy Doug on. Doug, thanks so much for coming on.
"Hey, Bo, thanks for having me on here. I'm so grateful to be here."
Yeah, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself, what you do, what you're all about?
Yeah, in the company, what we do is we refer to it as EBITDA multiplication. So what we do is we essentially raise revenues, lower expenses, and widen out the earnings before interest, tax, and amortization for companies. And that's usually it does two things. Number one, it opens operational cash flow up for them,
Mhm.
and ultimately cash flow in general. And number two, it improves the valuation of the company so that
Sure.
people, when they want to go sell the company, they get, they don't leave millions or tens of millions on the table. And ultimately, what it does also is it streamlines processes and reduces stress for people in their
Mhm.
business.
What do you work with all business niches, or is there a certain segment that you target?
Yeah, we originally we tried doing niches. I've worked with over 356 industries at this point.
Mhm.
So what I found is, for me, niching doesn't make sense, because it's all the same premise of growing a business. It's just
Yep.
how it's applied a little differently per niche, if you will.
Yep. What do you see as one of the biggest uh things in business that people miss the most?
Uh, there's a few, but believe it or not, the first thing out of the gate, Bo, is they don't really have a truthful goal.
Mm.
They really don't. I mean, most people set a goal and it's kind of pie in the sky, and they don't have any math or metrics to back it up. And then
Mhm.
when I look at their goal and I'm like, okay, well, here's the math and metrics to back it up. It's usually one of two things. It's like, oh, geez, didn't know that we had to do that. Or two, like, oh,
Yeah.
like, that type of thing. Geez, that's a lot more work than I figured it was going to be. And so, I say the second thing probably is that they really don't understand who their truthful right fit buyer is.
Mm.
They they think they know, and it shocked me. I saw Harvard and Wharton School of Business put out some literature, and then a couple of the credible companies actually kind of backed this up. And it stated that 97% of people selling, companies selling, in part or in full, don't know their ideal right fit buyer.
Mhm.
And so if we think about, you don't know your ideal right fit buyer, your messaging is going to be off, your prospecting is going to be off, everything's going to be
Mhm.
off, because it's like
Mhm.
we're going after, I don't know, we want to go into a green room and we're going into an orange room or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, once I kind of get those two aligned, then the next thing, usually it depends on the size of the company. Usually, what I find is most of their sales team members are not, or if they're even smaller and they only have a couple sales team members, they're usually not prospecting enough. They're not getting out there enough to get the numbers running. And then from
Mhm.
there, it's just a myriad of stuff that's just all over, from, they haven't paid attention to certain expenses and processes, to,
Mhm.
they're
Mhm.
they're holding on to personnel that they shouldn't have been holding on to. There's all kinds of things that go on.
I can relate to that too because, with my one business, the gym business, In the beginning, I really tried to be a gym for anybody and everybody.
Yeah.
And I think in business, that's really, really hard to do, trying to appeal to a broad audience. You like you said, you have to know who you're selling to. Um, and it's not up until recently, I would say in the last year or 2 that I've really decided to dive in deeper with my brand and really appeal more towards a target audience with some of my marketing. And we're still working on it, right? But
Yeah.
it was an adjustment because when you look at the competition, you're like, oh shit, man, I got to compete against Planet or this person or that person, and you just can't. You can't. First off, they're behemoths most of the
Yeah.
time,
Yeah. Yeah.
and secondly, a lot of time. And Alex, I don't know if you know Alex Ramosi, but Alex
Yes.
Ramosi talks about this where most people don't charge enough for their product or service, and if you really niche down on what you're trying to offer or sell, um, you could charge more for it because it could be a better experience or it could be a better product as long as it is a better experience or product.
Yeah, it's it's kind of the I think Alex uses the old doctor analogy, right? If like if you're a general practitioner,
Yeah.
you're going to get whatever, but if you're a, a specialized hematologist specializing in,
Yeah.
pediatric or whatever, then you become, a slice of the pie that you can dominate that
Mhm.
slice of the pie and you will be able to charge more for it. Like in my case, like I only deal with CEOs or owners of companies.
Mhm.
So that's
Mhm.
kind of my slice of the pie, if you will, right?
Mhm.
Because
Mhm.
where other people will deal with like maybe president of sales or CTOs or whatever, I don't generally do
Mhm.
that unless they own the company.
Mhm.
Um, so to me, that's my little slice. I deal with this specific, and in the gym business, you're right. I mean, it's there are certain if you're going to compete against Planet Fitness, you're now going to start competing on price because
Yeah.
Planet Fitness is going to throw their black card out there, and they're going to have
Yep.
take a member in with you. It's $20 a month or whatever it is, um, and competing on price is many times the sure race to the bottom, right? When it really comes
Mhm.
to it,
Mhm.
they've just learned how to scale this at massive scale and be able to do that cost effectively for them. But in a gym business, I would think something like, you know, uh, if you targeted down whatever you have in your like you had mentioned you're outside of Chicago, right? So one of the things in Chicago that I noticed was there's certain sectors of neighborhoods, right? There's like a
Mhm.
Polish neighborhood because my wife is from Poland, so we went to have Polish food and it was amazing there.
Mhm.
So, we can narrow down into certain slices and, maybe it's Polish. This is the Polish gym, right? And that
Yeah.
therefore people will come to that. Or maybe this is I've got a friend who owns like a gym specifically only for heavy lifters and bodybuilders,
Mhm. Mhm.
right? It's just like that's it. And you don't
Mhm.
a Planet Fitness person's not gonna want to go in there,
Yep. Exactly.
right?
Yep.
But he's also charging almost $50 a month to go to the gym, right?
Yep.
So, and he's getting it. He's been in business for, 20 years.
Yep.
So I think it's, the thing that for people to take away is what is your little slice of heaven, in that
Mhm.
how do you create a more of a blue ocean strategy versus the red ocean strategy? And for me, it seems to be that CEO
Mm.
business owner,
Mhm.
because there's a different language you speak to, let's say, a heavy lifter or a body or an
Yeah.
Arnold Schwarzenegger bodybuilder, right? Like
Yep.
Gold's Gym used to appeal to that type of thing years ago.
Right.
This is the same. It's a different conversation you're going to have with a CEO or an owner of a business than you're going to have with, say, the director of
Mhm.
operations, right? Very,
Mhm.
very
Yep.
different conversation. So I think that's why we have to know who we're actually talking with and why we're talking to them. And they always want two things: a business return on their investment and a personal
Yep.
return on their investment. If you can't speak the same language as that, you're speaking director of operations language to a CEO, you're just completely going to lose, him or her. I mean, it's just the
Mhm.
way it is.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think it's a smart idea to especially if you're in a business that doesn't have a huge amount of capital to work with because you take a Planet Fitness. I mean, they're a big company. Um,
Yeah.
where a lot of companies they don't have that. They've got to carve out that specialization in
Mhm.
what makes them not different. I mean, excuse me, not differentiated, but different. And that can be done through a lot of different methodologies. I mean, it's just, I mean, even a customer experience can be a different customer
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah.
Like I'm a member at Planet Fitness, Bo, and I go there, and there are some people behind the desk that frankly shouldn't even be there.
Mhm.
Yes,
Yeah.
they don't even talk to anybody, right? So it's
Yeah.
kind of like, um, but if we're going to go into that categorization that we're talking about, that person who just makes your day coming through at the gym, like, hey, what's up? And it's like that community that happens there. That's why
Mhm.
people like when I was growing up, we went to this place called Hard Knocks Gym,
Mhm.
and Dave Knox owned it. He was a police officer, but it was specifically for like bodybuilders and kids in like I was in high school at the time, and I was in martial arts, and my buddies were all power lifters, and we were kind of in that place. But we would drive 35 minutes to get to this gym,
Mhm.
and it was just this little hole in the wall rat hole gym that
Yeah.
today I mean, if you went to Planet Fitness, you walked in this gym, you'd be like, forget this, right? But
Yeah.
it was just that. And we went for, I mean, I was going there for almost 12 years straight,
Mm.
you know what I mean?
Wow.
So because the atmosphere was it was
It's
in
like
the
Cheers, everybody knew everybody and
exactly,
yeah.
right? Yeah, you don't go to Cheers. Once you get in there, you're in that with that Cheers atmosphere. You're like, I love this thing. There's
Yeah.
the pitch, really,
Yeah.
when it comes down to it.
Yeah. Uh, at the same time, those behemoths, you do get a somewhat of a competitive advantage being smaller because kind of what Planet is running into now is, they've appealed to that, uh, where they would have no free weights, only machines, dumbbells that only go up to 60 pounds. And during COVID, the whole industry shifted during COVID, and there's more younger people working out now than there is older, and the younger people want the weights.
Yeah,
So now Planet has to do this ginormous capital expense to
yeah,
reinvent all of their units, their locations,
yeah,
to start adding squat racks, free weights, benches, bigger dumbbells. That's huge, especially when if you're because most of these are franchises, right?
right.
So if you're a franchisee, that has 10, 20, 100 locations, which I know some of them, uh, that's a lot of money that they've got to spend to try and, redo all their facilities.
Yeah, and the interesting part about that to me, because I am a Planet Fitness member, right, is I won't go to certain Planet Fitness gyms because they change the equipment around.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so in other words, because they had to make space for all of that stuff, right? So
Yeah.
then what
Yep.
did they do? They pulled some of the, steady Eddie favorites that people
Yep.
liked
Yep.
out, or they turned in their stretching area, or they eliminated the woman's only area, let's
Yeah.
say, and
Yeah.
and then they needed additional space.
Yeah.
So I haven't looked at Planet's numbers, but I can tell you what inside the gym people were saying, right? They're like,
Hmm.
and some like, I'm not going to this location anymore. I won't go to that location. Um, something as simple as like when they put new equipment into like the Roman chair that they used,
Yep.
it's a piece of junk. It's like
Mm.
it was like they they thinned out the chair so much that you're like, oh my god, it's gonna break if somebody big gets on here.
Mm.
And
Mm.
and so you can like feel the difference in the equipment. So marketing. One of the things I learned about marketing early on was from J. Conrad Levinson. He wrote these book series called
Mhm.
Guerrilla Marketing. I actually knew Jay when he was alive,
Mhm.
and I had some chances to have a conversation with him. And he told me this. He said, "Doug, marketing is everything that touches the senses."
Mm.
And I've always adapted that because, in a gym, especially, I mean, gosh, you're feeling stuff, it's tactile, it's visual, it's,
Yeah.
I mean, it's all the senses. I mean, even, smells in the gym,
Mhm.
right? Those type of things. So that experience you have walking through the front, like we were talking about, and somebody says hello today, or they say nothing, right? Or all of these things make up that specialized process that you're talking about, Bo. And I think a lot of companies don't pay attention to that. I mean, even like how they answer the telephone,
Yeah.
you know. The crazy part is that initial answer on the telephone a lot of times determines the amount of revenue that will come through the door.
Yeah.
Um, and so if they don't pay attention to these small metrics and signals, what ends up
Mhm.
happening is they lose quarter percent here, half percent there, 2% here, 4% there. And then that
Mhm.
adds up to a big lot of stress,
Mhm.
over time.
Mhm. Do you mostly work with small businesses or do you work with large corporations?
Yeah, I specialize usually in companies that are doing usually 5 to 100 million. That's kind of my market, you know.
Mhm. Mhm.
But I find a lot of times I work with companies outside that market as well.
Mhm.
They have different needs at
Mhm.
different levels. I was just talking to a company this morning, and one was, 17 million, one was, $1 million. So
Mm.
it's like it kind of ranges in all over. And then, I've had clients that, I've worked on Procter and Gamble and Enterprise Rent Car and CB Richard Ellis, big huge real estate companies.
Mhm.
W- Here's the thing: is like business is super super simple. Really, when
Mhm.
it comes down to it, it's money out plus money in equals something, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
And so, if we look at all businesses in that context, then it's now how does that formula apply specially to this particular business of that particular size?
Right.
Right. So a company that's not doing a couple $1 million, they should be focused all on money in,
Mhm.
just sales, sales, sales,
Mm.
sales, 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 up until you get to a certain place. And then you can focus a little bit more on the money out, so to speak.
Mhm. Mhm.
And then as they get to a certain size, they've got to have systems and processes and, procedures, all of that. And then as they get to that place, then eventually it can't become owner dependent anymore. It's got to become department dependent or division dependent. And as start to work out, everybody has their own P&L, so to speak, in
Yeah.
each segment, right? So it just depends on the size of the business, where they're at, what they're looking to do. And
Mhm.
but the methodology that I have used, for well over 30 years with all size companies, I mean, literally, thousands of companies over time,
Mhm.
it's 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 pretty standardized, and it produces results that are predictable. And
Mhm.
that's what most people are looking for, is predictable results.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's, I would love that in my own business is predictable results.
Mhm.
But it can be very hard when you've got changes in, competition landscape, changes in, marketing as well. But yeah, what do you think is, um, like a business that what do you do in a business that moves the needle the most in terms of margin? Is it money in or money out?
It could be both. I mean, it's so
For sure.
so it depends. Like when you look at certain segments of the business, like y- you don't want to just focus on one, because that's what a
Mhm.
lot of people come in. "Oh, I want to just grow my sales." Okay, well, if you're growing your sales unprofitably, why would you want to continue to
Mhm.
keep growing your sales, right? Um, so there's a lot of untapped money in companies. So I'll give you a
Mhm.
kind of an example. Like there's easy things that companies can do, like dormant client reactivation.
Mm.
So, how many people listening to this, how many times do you talk to your people who haven't bought from you in a period of time? Do
Mm.
you re-engage them? Right? Because I can tell you, just going back and re-engaging them will bring some money in. What does it
Yeah.
cost to do that? little to nothing really when it comes
Mhm,
down. A lot
mm,
of times it's just a phone call, an email, a text message, getting on
mhm,
the phone, right? Um, you know, so what we do, Bo, is we go after the short-term wins first
mm,
because I don't want to be an expense on somebody's books, right?
mhm,
When we look at it. So the short-term wins. So what brings money in quickly? I'll give you an example. I worked with a they were an internet type company that worked with real estate companies, and they were doing nothing on referrals, like zero. They had been in business for many, many, many years. And I'm like, why don't you do referrals? Like, we don't really care to do referrals. We don't need them. And they had like 9 people on the sales team. And I said to the CEO, I said, let's get them doing referrals. And he's like, you
mm.
do whatever you want. And I'm like, okay. So I talked to the sales team. I said, let's do some referrals. They're like, we don't want to do that. I said, CEO says do it. We're doing it.
Mhm.
You can argue with me. You can argue with him. What do you want to do?
Mhm. Yeah.
Right? So I said, just humor me. So I gave him a little tiny few words to say every time. Ask this. Come back next week. We look at the numbers. They go, well, we only got 2 referrals. This isn't working.
After 1 week.
And I'm like, you haven't got 2 referrals in 6 years, right?
Yeah.
so, so I'm like, just humor me another week. They come back. They go, well, we got 3 referrals this week. They go, look, this is not worth our time because they were just vehemently opposed to pushing forward on referrals, right?
Sure. Sure.
And I said, just humor me another week or two. And they said,
Yeah.
okay, fine. Next week, they got, I think it was 5 referrals. Yeah, they got 5 referrals.
Mhm.
And they go, look, all right, the numbers are going up, they were telling me, but it's really not. And so on the 4th week, they came back. I said, how'd we do? They go, well, we got 1 referral. I said, one? You had 5, 4, right? They said, yeah,
Yeah.
one. I said, so I said, well, let's look at the numbers. What did we close that? They go, yeah, we got 1 referral that closed. I said, well, what what were the numbers? It was good. It was that type of and I was laughing. I'm like, okay, what did we close? So I'm like, I can pull the numbers, guys, and look at these things, right? So this was just I was meeting with this team once a week.
Yeah.
3,215 locations across the United States. They closed on a referral.
Oh my gosh.
And ever since then, referrals have been a big part of their play now, right?
Wow.
And what did it cost them for that referral? Nothing.
Yeah.
So there are things that any business can do that will not lay a lot of capital outlay that can raise
Mhm.
revenues.
Mhm.
And it
Mhm.
also can be on the expense side, a reduction. Like I just looked at somebody that were doing almost 5 million in credit card, and we looked at an optimization on that, and their fees and structure and everything brought their credit card um, down. They were
Mhm.
paying 5 million a year, brought them down by $1 million,
Wow.
right? So like that drops to right to the bottom line right
Right to the
away,
bottom line.
right?
Yeah.
So it's like it depends on what the company's doing, but again, to move the EBITDA for most CEOs and most owners is a very attractive thing to do.
Mhm.
And you could take that $1 million and just call it operating capital at that point if you want. I mean, think about it. If
Yeah.
you had $1 million, what could you do with the $1 million that you didn't have? No, it's not just $1 million, it's $1 million a year,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
So it's a matter of like really taking what we do, Bo, is we look at first, we have a conversation, figure out does it make sense, and then from there we really do a diagnostic deep dive on everything
Mhm.
going on. We look
Mhm.
at 21 areas of increasing EBITDA.
Mhm.
We do interviews with the employees, interviews with the executive staff, all of this stuff, and then what we do is we figure out what's the growth plan supposed to be. And from there, it's implementation of that growth plan, really, when it comes down to it.
I don't think people realize how huge that is. I mean, just using that example of the $1 million that they were able to, save in credit card fees right to the bottom line, that's
Yeah,
EBITDA, right to EBITDA. I mean, if you're trading at an 8x, you're getting $8 million
$1 million.
more on your sale price.
Yeah.
just from that one cost savings,
Yeah.
and just like the referral example you gave, like, I mean, what do you think that brought them in revenue by getting that one referral?
Oh, yeah, I know what it was. So it wasn't a huge amount per, so it was $300, 3,215 times $300. It brought in $9,645,000
Wow,
a
that's
year,
crazy.
because it was on renewable.
Yeah, and what kind of margin do you think?
Oh God, 40.
Yeah, so there you go. So you're talking 4 million bucks. Again, even if you say a 5x multiple on EBITDA, that's 20
20
million extra
million.
dollars on
Yeah.
your sale price. That's
Yeah.
huge.
Yeah, but since it was recurring revenue, it was even higher than 5, right? So that
Yeah,
would be higher. So,
yeah.
but like you're right. I mean, the average company's, I think it's selling at 4.6, 4.7 EBITDA. So
Mm,
at a 5x, I mean, yeah, it's 20 million bucks.
yeah,
You know, and that's after the money that they're collecting every single year.
yeah,
So
yeah.
and here's the thing, like a lot of times, like smaller company, like I just have I've been helping a lot of consultants lately, which is
Mm,
interesting, Bo, because fantastic results, like crazy. It's easy for me to do. I can spot all this stuff for them and help them. We had one gentleman go from 700,000 to 920,000 in 6 weeks in revenue in his business,
wow.
right? That's like life changing for that
Yeah.
size, you know. Um,
30% increase in revenue in 6 weeks is unheard of
Yeah,
most of
yeah,
the
yeah. I
time.
just had another guy. He added $200,000 in 4 months to his
Wow.
to his. So it's, but I was looking at one of his clients that, and they weren't a huge company. They were like almost $700,000,
Mhm.
and I was looking at through the numbers in the P and L and all this, and I'm like, because I've done so much of this, I can start to pull it out of the ether, if you will, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, they were a construction company. I'm like, oh my goodness, they're sitting on $300,000 right in this like little block in their P and L, that
Mhm.
we just adjust this, and all it is pricing adjustments and a couple of other things. Even if they don't want to go, and it wasn't aggressive either. It wasn't like we had to double their prices or anything. I mean, you just had to go up a little bit on the pricing because they were
Mhm.
using a lot of subcontracted labor, and
Mm.
they weren't charging the appropriate rate for their area for that actual labor.
Mhm.
But see, they miss things like that, right? So all of a sudden you go from 700,000 to $1 million and you're more
Yeah.
profitable.
Yeah.
So instead of, netting out 145,000 on the bottom line, now you're netting out 350.
Mhm.
And it's like, for a small business owner, that's life changing for them.
Yeah. Absolutely. What do you think is the average margin that you actually help businesses grow by, or percentage grow by after working with them?
Yeah, so it's been moving around a bit. So we were averaging about 24.5%.
That's great.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so I mean, when you get to like big companies, sometimes it's harder to move that number,
Mhm.
I mean,
Mhm.
you're talking billions of dollars, and then you got to kind
Yeah.
of move it, right? So, and then smaller companies, like I've had like huge wins on, companies that are smaller. I mean, I literally had people like, I had one business go in 2 years from 3.5 million to almost 11.
Mm.
You know what I mean? So, like,
Wow. 3x.
yeah, yeah.
Almost 4x, really.
Yeah, and the wonderful part about that business is that was recurring revenue,
Mm.
and they sold it. And the owner and I are still pretty good friends today, and he won't tell me exactly what he got for the multiple on it. I know he bought a casino, and
Real
I know, yeah, he bought into a casino, and he also told me, quote, "It was stupid money." Like, and for this
really?
gentleman to say that, so my guess is they probably got, 8x on that multiple.
Mm.
But he's retired. You know what I mean? Like, he
Yeah.
doesn't.
That's great.
So it just depends. I mean, I've had, and I don't want to throw all these numbers out thinking people like, oh, that's exactly what I'm going to get, because you just don't know until you
You don't
open
right.
the hood and start looking underneath, right?
Yeah.
Um, I had one gentleman who went from 5.7 to 8.2 million in 3 weeks.
Jesus.
And I had another one, you know, took several years to get them to double their business, right? So, I mean, they would grow like,
Mhm, mhm,
10% this year, 14, 22, 30, and then it kind of all
mhm,
averaged out over, a 4 or 5 year period to get there. But it just, like Intuit, we helped Intuit. Um, they were losing $10 million a year on $100 million division, and we got them from $10 million loss to a $7 million gain in 1 year.
$17 million swing is huge.
Yeah, and that division today actually is does things like Rocket Mortgage and things like that, right? So that
Mhm.
so some people may know that that particular product. So it just really depends. I mean, and I've looked at businesses too, Bo, and I'm like, you're doing great.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
it's like, we might be able to squeak 3-4% out of this, if that's what you
Mhm,
want to do. But it's like you're really doing everything that you possibly should be doing at this point. And then maybe there's some acquisition strategies that might make it better for you or something like that. But I mean, sometimes companies just really do have their stuff in order. But most of them are missing out on something like even something as simple as follow up for their
mm,
sales team, man, especially in the trades business, construction, landscaping, commercial landscapers, notoriously terrible on following up on proposals,
mm.
which is crazy because sometimes
That
these
is
things are
crazy.
hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars, and
Right.
their sales team just doesn't follow up on them.
Wow.
And
And that's a simple implementation to do with some type of CRM or ERP that can help manage all of that stuff.
yeah, yeah. And you still have, and in addition to that, the human accountability to it, right?
Yes,
Right.
yeah.
So a lot of times, like sales managers, they're not really a sales manager's job is to grow the revenue of the department or the division that they're actually managing.
Mhm.
That's the first job. Second job is coaching the people along that process.
Yep,
It's the only two things they really need to do, right? Is
yep.
just like, and so a lot of times I find they don't coach the people through the process. And part of coaching is holding accountability.
Mhm.
And a lot of times it's not their fault. They never were taught to do this. It's just one of those things that if they follow that process and hold accountability, like when I was running sales teams, we used to train 4 days, 5 days, sometimes a week,
Mm,
and they would turn their numbers in every single period of time that we asked. It was no longer than a week, and I would look at all the
mhm.
metrics and I go, oh, okay, like you would say, follow up's not happening, right? Or
Right.
it's happening at this particular place. And like when I did so when I was with Tony Robbins and Chet Holmes, they had business divisions that I
Yeah.
ran, and I looked at the sales team numbers when I first got there, and I was like, something's missing, man. Like the numbers just didn't add up. Long story short, found in 2 years 17,000 leads that were never followed up on.
Wow.
And that was skewing the numbers enough to say there was some discrepancy. So then when I started looking at this, uh, what the sales manager was doing is when the leads were coming in, she would look at the leads and go, "Nah, this one's not qualified," and just throw it out.
Mm,
Well, it's costing them $13 a piece per lead to bring those in.
mm.
So, if you run $17,000, right, times $13, it's $221,000 in leads that just never even got touched,
Yeah.
right? And then as they were going along the sales cycle, if it got a little too more difficult, if you will, for the salesperson to overcome it, she would kick them out as well.
Which is funny to hear that coming from Tony Robbins and Chet Holmes.
Yeah, well, I mean, but Tony's like way top level,
Yeah.
right? And
Mhm.
and Chet was very top level as well. So they were looking at, Chet more than Tony, I believe, was looking at the numbers, and he said to me, he said, Doug, we're running negative on the front end of the machine.
Mhm.
So that's where I started looking at that. So I found that, solved that problem, and then requantify, recalculated the close rate, because the close rate they said we're closing at 21%, but they were only closing at 12.2% on the front end.
Oh.
And so when I took all of those leads, and anybody who was coming in new, because they were recruiting salespeople all the time, I'm like, you got to crawl through these leads, and I need 2 sales before you hit the phones.
Mm.
And so what was happening now is we were making sales on those leads that were dead for 2 years, right? Just
Mm.
like 2 years, over a 2 year period, we would go back through these leads. That also brought better sales team members. But then I looked at another and noticed when they go from the sales team to the presenters team, there was a 15.6% refund rate on the front end of the presenters team.
Mm.
And so what I looked at and I said, well, why? Because when you look at numbers, it gives you a cause to go dig. If
Yeah.
and so what I found out, this was crazy. Um, so imagine they're pushing 1,000 to 3,000 leads a week through this machine at this point.
Mhm.
They get to this sales team. They were converting. By the way, we got the close rate from 12.1 back up to 22% within a few months.
Mm.
So, 1 in 5 are essentially, we're moving on to the next thing into the presenters team. So if you have, 2,000 leads that are coming through and you have 20%, that means, you're pushing 400 leads a week through this system.
Yeah.
Now, if 15% of those are falling out, what is that number? Like 15.6. So it's like 65 refunds a week going
Ah.
on in the business, right?
Mhm.
And so I was looking at that and going, man, 65, and you go 50 weeks a year. That's like 3,250 leads that are refunding. And it wasn't a lot of money. It was only
Or
two.
essentially 15% of your total of your sales are being refunded. That's huge.
That's my point, right? So the front end numbers, I mean, that was just to kind of put it into perspective, the front end numbers are like $744,000 a year.
Mhm. Mhm.
So it's kind of a leak.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I went and looked at and the presentation was amazing. I mean, they just did
Mhm.
an amazing job. People got great results. But what was happening is right toward the end of the presentation, they would go around the room. They had like 20 live human beings, CEOs, business owners, and they would add up all the numbers. And the CEOs and business owners were saying, geez, I just got $462,000 on this training. I just got 17 million. I just got, 86,000, And so they would go around that whole room. And then what they were saying in the presenter script was, listen, if you don't think we deserved our money today, the $229 for this training, if we didn't deliver, I want you to call right now, 1-800 get a refund.
Mm.
And and they would repeat it 2 or 3 times. If you really don't think we went over and above, I want you to call right now, get your money, drop off this line, call this 800 number, get a refund.
Mhm.
And I'm like, oh my goodness, they're inviting them to go refund, right?
Right.
So all I did, Bo, is I looked at that and I just took a little thing that I watched Tony Robbins do one day on stage. And I'm like, I bet this will work. And so when we got to the same place, we added up all the numbers and people would report the numbers. And then what I
Mhm.
told the presenters to do was add up the total. Because Tony would always get people on stage and he'd go, woohoo, and he'd do stuff like
Yeah.
that, right?
Yeah.
And so I had him add him up. And so like the first call, it was like $82,466,712 on this call. So what we would do is add them all up and we'd say, hey guys, we got 86, whatever the number was, 86 million, 82 million, whatever. We got 37 million, whatever on this call. I think we deserved our fee today. What do you think? Everybody say, woohoo. And
Mm.
bam, just like clockwork, they all went, woo, yeah, you guys did. Woohoo. Okay, great, guys. And then they just moved on to the next thing. That
Mhm.
refund rate within 2 days dropped to under 1%.
Wow.
Now, the crazy part is that 15% that was pushing through was
Uh-huh.
buying coaching, $35,000 core stories. Some of them bought
Ah.
consulting packages, right? So that then collapsed that loss on the front end of the machine.
Wow.
And I'm just this is what people can do with their own businesses, right? I mean, they got to look at the numbers, the metrics, the math.
The numbers are everything, man. I'm so OCD with my numbers.
I'm
Yeah.
glad,
Yeah.
it's unusual for
Yeah.
most people.
Yeah. Um, Going back to the example you gave of the girl that wasn't qualifying the leads, like, why did she think that they weren't qualified leads?
Oh, well, she would look at the revenue
Oh.
and she go, "Oh, no, no, that's not."
Mm.
So she was basically disqualifying any. Oh, this was another thing that I monetized for them. Anything under 300,000, she was kicking out in revenue.
You my god, what happens if they're doing 50% margins?
It's never even got that conversation going, right? It's like, yeah, I mean, the old adage, would you rather have $1 million company at 90% profit
Right,
or a $10
right,
million company at 2% profit, right?
right, yeah.
So it's like they were just kicking them out. And
Mhm,
so when I looked at what they were kicking out, I was like, wait a minute. So they were selling a $4,000 to $12,500 package on these presentation calls.
mhm,
And when I looked at what she was kicking out, I know why she was kicking it out, because they weren't converting,
mhm,
right? They were converting at less than 1% on that 4,000 to 12.5.
mhm,
And I was like, well, if you're doing $150,000 a year and you're asking somebody to buy a $12,000, $500, investment, that's a pretty big chunk of their revenue, right?
mhm,
So it makes sense. So then what I realized is they had this thing called the sales mastery system. They were selling it for $895 and they were only selling 8 of them a month.
wow. I remember that course too.
Do you?
Yeah.
Okay. So here's what I did with that course. They had that course and I looked at all the under 300. And so I'm like, why are they only buying at 1%? Because their content, their training was amazing. Their coaches were amazing, right? Everything
Mhm,
was good
mhm,
in there. And then I'm like, they probably perceive they can't afford this. There might be something else. So what did I do? I called non-buyers, potential buyers, all under 300,000. And I said, what are you looking for? And the overwhelming answer was, we want coaching.
mhm.
We need coaching. We know we need coaching. We want to grow our revenues. Well, of course, at 300,000, all you want is sales. That's what you should be looking at
Yeah,
in your business,
right.
right? So I took the same content, didn't change it at all, didn't change the name of the program whatsoever. We called it the Sales Mastery System. I added 6 weeks of group coaching and I raised the price to $1,450.
Mhm,
We presented it the same way. We made the offer. And then what I did is I segmented the room. I took everybody that was not, at $300,000 and down.
mhm,
And I looked at the other metrics up to about 3 million. So I
mm,
realized that I could take the same companies, as long as they didn't hit $1 million, put them in the same room.
mhm,
And then we segmented 1 to 5 million and then 5 million plus companies.
mhm.
So on that 999,000 down group, we offered the sales mastery system,
The 1450.
the 1450, which was 895 now with 6 weeks worth of coaching. And
Okay.
remember, we had 8 sales on average per month. In
Mhm.
our first month, we sold 108 of them.
Jeez, wow.
Our second month, we did 232. Our
Mm.
third month, we did 328. Our fourth month, we did 427. Our fifth month, we did 500. And it never came down in the 7 years after that when I was there.
Wow.
So we went from something producing basically 8 times 895, right? A
Yeah.
month times, you know, so what is that? 895 times 8 was 7160 times 12.
Mhm.
So $86,000. That was the sales on there. And we were averaging 475 sales at 1450 a month after 6 months. So that's 688,000 in sales. So times
Jeez.
12. We went to 8.2 million versus $86,000.
That's insane.
And the crazy part is, Bo, is a percentage of those people went on to buy $35,000 programs. They went on to
Mm,
buy additional this and additional that, right?
yeah.
Um,
Kind of going back to Tony's scene, raving fans. If you can, if they prove it on the first round, they're going to definitely come back for round two for the
yeah,
next best thing.
yeah, yeah, and so some of those guys and gals probably are still going to Tony Robbins virtual events or whatever
Yeah,
today. So
yeah.
I don't know. I mean, if you just took year one where people were buying additional products and services, that probably was $10 million that we were selling just in
Mm,
that one product set alone. And and worse yet, these people weren't getting before they weren't even getting helped, right? They
yeah,
would come
yeah,
in, see the nut, see it, see they could do it, didn't know where to go, and so they struggle for a long time. Now at
yeah.
least we helped that percentage of that population that wanted the help, and we were getting great results out of the process.
Mhm.
And it just was a win-win all the way around.
Hmm. That's awesome. I love hearing those kind of stories because it's such a simple thing to do. It's really not that hard. Like you said earlier, it's just look at the numbers. How can we improve? Where are we missing the mark? Let's improve it. And now, for in Tony's example, you 100x his revenue in one division.
Yeah, and I used to Chet Holmes, a super nice guy. I used to joke with him like because I was going through. So what he asked me to do eventually was like go through every division of this company and just
Huh.
do what you're doing on this. So I took the coaching. They were doing 6 months at $1,500 on average. I got them to $2,500 a month, 12 months. Right, so we went from a 9,000 to a $30,000, and the close rate went up by 5%. So they were closing 20%. We got it up to 25%. So I was going through everything for Chet,
Wow.
and because Tony primarily he was there, but he was more of a figurehead in the process,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm. He's
Um,
basically driving the leads, really.
yeah, of course, yeah, and that's
Mhm.
I mean, he's unbelievably great at doing that, and
Yeah.
and he's Tony Robbins. I mean, he's the guy out there, and Chet had his own audience
Mhm.
like that, right? And so I was the guy behind. Eventually, we got a CEO in the company. Chet got out. We got a CEO, and the CEO and I were driving the company at that point.
Mhm. Mhm.
And but I used to, Chet passed from leukemia, and
Mhm.
when he found out he got sick, I was always joking with him. I'm like, he went and bought himself a Rolls Royce, and I'm like, Chet, where's my Rolls Royce, right? So
Do you still keep in contact with anyone from, like, Tony's team or Tony himself?
not Tony directly, but I do keep in touch with quite a few people from the team. Um, I Tony's. I'm so grateful to have had the opportunity to work, in that
Mhm.
environment,
Mhm.
because we were all independents, right? So I was an
Mhm.
independent president of sales and training
Mhm.
for almost 8 years. And that led me to another, great, training guy. His name was Russ Whitney, and
Mhm.
Russ owned Rich Dad Poor Dad and a bunch of other brands. And
Yeah.
I work with him. Man, that guy is smart. Oh my gosh. Um,
Really?
oh, geez, I
So
learned
wait a minute, Rich Dad Poor Dad is not owned by, Robert Kiyosaki?
at the time. I believe Kiyosaki only owned 9% of the business.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So Russ owned the majority of the shares. The company was called, I think, Tigrant Learning, if I remember
Mhm.
correctly.
Mhm.
And Russ is brilliant. Like this guy's just super brilliant. He had uh like 250 million in training brands that he was doing. And he also had another 700 and almost 750 ish in construction and other types of companies he was running and other different companies, right? And he just thought on a very Tony thinks on a very strategic level. Chet thought on a strategic level. Russ, he just thinks in a different way. And
Mhm.
I was shoulder to shoulder with him for about 17 months together, and I learned
Mhm.
so much. It was a wonderful thing. And
What do you think makes him think differently? What do you mean by that?
Russ would Russ was more of so this was like something they would do, right? They would raise a company
Mhm.
and they would grow it to a $500,000 in revenue.
Half a million?
Half a million.
Okay.
Then they would get a board meeting together with everybody, and they would determine whether they kill the company or make it go forward.
Hmm.
And so I remember we built the company, he and I together, and we got it to $1 million in revenue in the first year.
Hmm.
For like from stop, like just like from ground zero to $1 million, very small company we were building.
Mhm.
And we got together and we talked about it and decided to pull the plug at $1 million.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. Because we just realized it wasn't going to scale to where we wanted it to scale to.
Oh, okay.
And so Russ said to me, the best decisions that he's made sometimes are the pull the plug meetings because you know, he learned early on when they would buy a brand or whatever, and then they would try to
Mhm.
create it to get to
Mhm.
another $500,000 or whatever.
Mm.
And he's like, there's no sense dumping money continuously into something that's just going to be a struggle.
Yeah.
Right. So he thought on that type of level where most people like, man, you got it to $1 million, like just keep it going. Like, he would look at things and say, okay, can we get that to 5 or 15 within this period of time? And if not,
Mm.
it doesn't make the cut.
Mm. Okay.
And so he would think strategically in those type of arenas. He would very much look at math and metrics in the
Mhm.
business. He knew on the front end, for example, on the training business, he knew exactly what you needed to put a butt in a seat for
Mhm.
in order to make it profitable. And if it wasn't going to work, that business wasn't going to work. So when I watched him work and I worked with him, my analytical side also molded into what he was doing, but he looked at it from a different CEO perspective. It would be like,
Mm.
I don't know, working maybe with Warren Buffett or something. He would look at
Right.
things just differently than, say, not that Tony didn't look at things like that or Chet, but just differently.
Yeah.
Right. And so when I would be working with certain, CEOs even today, like I had the privilege of working with the head of CBS television,
Okay.
and he just thought differently, right? So you kind of like grab a little bit here and a little bit there and a little
Mhm.
bit
Mm.
there, and then you find the common threads, Bo, that go
Mhm.
throughout that, and you go, oh, there's the success principle,
Yeah.
right? And then so you're like, okay, so okay, that's a driver number one, driver number two, driver number
Yeah.
three, and that's how I started building out this process that we did. Because when you work with thousands of companies and literally tens of thousands of people, you start to see it. It doesn't take a genius to see these, 18 CEOs are doing all the same thing and getting all these great results. It's like, okay, that's got to be a success principle.
Right.
Or these 18 CEOs are doing this and it's failing miserably. That's not a success principle, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, what works and then what's universal in businesses. And it doesn't really matter because of like a lot of people will say, like, well, geez, if you had a swimming pool company and you had a manufacturing company, right? You clean pools and you had a manufacturing company, they run differently. That is true.
Mhm.
But the premise of the business runs the same.
The same. Yep.
It's like human
Yeah.
beings, right?
Yeah.
Men think like men, women think like women.
Yeah.
Call it whatever you want, but
Yeah.
the reality is that you know, other than cultural or value differences across the globe, I've worked almost on every single continent here we have.
Mhm.
People are the same.
Yeah.
They all want the same things. They all want love, family, respect. They all want the same things. It's just maybe there might be a little cultural difference
Yeah.
between, but human brains run the same way.
Right. I think that is from everything that I've, people I've talked to, what I've read and listened to, that is one trait that a lot of super successful people have is they're able to build great teams because I think that when you're dealing with the Tonys, the Chets, the Russes, they come up with this idea for a business. They're not the ones that's on the ground level. They're the ones they're hiring the people
Yeah.
to be able to achieve what they want to do, which takes a lot of capital expenditure to be able to do. And I think a lot of business owners, most of the US is small business owners.
Yeah.
These guys have to wear multiple hats and they think they got to do it all. It's very hard to get away from, even myself. It's very hard for me to get away from not doing everything.
So, there comes a time in every business. It depends on what the goal is of the business. Again, going back to the truthful goal, right? Some people are
Yeah.
like, I just want this size business and I want to be involved in it every single day. And
Mhm.
you know, now if you look at it from another perspective, somebody says, I want this business a certain size and I want to sell it for as much as I possibly can sell it for.
Mm, mhm.
Now we have to remove that owner dependence out of the business to get a higher multiple.
Mm.
So it is very difficult for, again, I always say this, the business is so easy until you add people.
That's very true. Yeah.
once you
Very, very
once you
true.
add people, it's all that emotion and
Yeah.
thoughts and feelings and all that stuff come in. Um, and a lot of times owners can't feel, or people who are in those positions feel like if they hand it off, it might not get done or get done as well
Yep.
as they could do it.
Yep.
Um, and what I've learned is that it could be true, but in most cases, it actually gets done better than the
Mhm.
the owner can do it, and not because the owner's not as smart as the other person. It's just the other person comes at it from a different perspective,
Yeah.
and frankly, the owner should not be. It's one thing to dip down into something, Bo. Like let's say, like I watched Russ do this. Russ would, when they started something new, he'd dip down, be on the floor with the sales team for a few days,
Mhm. Yeah.
right? Understanding it.
Yep.
But, it's one thing to dip down, but then you've got to be able to take yourself out of that because the CEO's job is to grow the company.
Yep. Yeah.
And so if the CEO is involved in all of the things that shouldn't be involved in, the time value is. I once I once worked with a CEO and they were doing tens of millions of dollars in this company. And every day he would go get coffee for the company.
Oh,
And he would
geez.
get out of his office and he'd walk down to like the local coffee shop, or sometimes he'd go to Starbucks and he'd buy coffee for everybody. And I said to him, I said, "Why are you doing this?" And he said, makes me feel good. I
Mhm.
go, "Well, okay, that's cool." I said, "Do you know what it's costing you to actually make coffee?" And he said, "Well, no, it's just, it takes me about, I don't know, half an hour or so. I walk down, get the coffee, I come back, whatever, right?" I said, "Is it like a mental exercise? You get anything out of it?" He goes, "No, not really. I just go get the coffee and bring it back, right?" And so I said, "You're doing this every day?" He goes, "Yeah." So I said, "It's 30 minutes a day." He said, "Yeah." I said, "That's 2.5 hours a week." He goes, "Yes." "Where are you going with this?" I said, "You take 4 weeks of vacation. So 2.5, that's 120 hours a year."
Yeah.
I said, "I want you to take your company revenue and divide it by 2080. Let's come up with a number and let's see what it's costing you to get that coffee."
Yeah.
And when we ran the numbers, he was like, "You gotta be kidding me." It was like literally it was like $186,000 or something to go get
Per
coffee,
per trip or whatever,
Yeah, it
yeah.
was insane, right? And so, and I'm like, you could hire 2 full-time people.
Mhm, mhm.
One of them, all their job is just to go get the coffee and you're still up, right? So
Yeah,
he eventually said, "Oh, yeah, okay, I can't do the coffee anymore."
yeah. Well, that's good because a lot of CEOs will be stubborn and they won't wanna do it.
Right. Right. Well, because what I explained to him is I said, "Look, if we took that 120 hours and we went CEO to CEO with other companies and
Mhm.
we only landed 3 accounts in a year,
Yeah,
right? And we monetized that." So as soon as he saw that, he was like, "Okay, no more coffee."
yeah,
Right? But it's just one of those things that sometimes it's a lot easier to see it from the outside looking in than it is from the inside looking out.
yep,
And so that's the value of actually having somebody take a look at this and being with you, on a consistent basis. that can see these and spot these blind spots because we all have them.
Mhm.
I have them. I assume I don't know you well enough to know both say you have them, but I
I
would
got
say
plenty of them.
yeah, many people do, right? And
Yeah.
so that's the value in that process. And it's when you have a skill set around a certain thing. Like I was talking to a friend of mine this morning, and he was he's a consultant actually, and he said. I've got this deal. I just was closing it. And the person asked, hey, do you know a good CPA? And he said, yeah. And he said, and he said, I gave him the number. And I said, no, 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 no. He goes, what? I said, no, 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 no. You're now introducing competition
Mm.
before you've even closed your deal.
Mm.
I said, because I looked at the P&L of this company and I said, this is an easy fix for you. But what the
Mhm.
CPA is going to do is say, my gosh, you're going to spend so much money on taxes this year. Go out and buy $100,000 vehicle to
Mm.
start dropping this down. Go out and buy this. Go out and do that. Go out and do that. And I said, you know what's going to happen to the money that they were going to pay you?
Mhm.
It's now going to go to Mercedes Benz or wherever they're going to.
Yeah.
So, and he went, oh my gosh, I didn't really think about it that way. Right. So sometimes it's just like spotting these things because,
Yeah.
if he did that once a month,
Uh-huh.
that could cost him easy 600 grand a year.
Yeah.
Right.
Mhm. Mhm.
So it's just one of those things that sometimes it really just helps somebody who understands this stuff to, it's like going to the doctor, right? The doctor looks at you and he goes, oh, you probably have
Sure.
one of these three things. And you're like, oh, I didn't know these things existed. Right. Um, and it's like, well, is this one going to kill me? Don't worry about it. None of them are going to hurt you that bad. We're just going to run a test to figure this out or whatever. It's the same type of thing. The worst type of doctor is, imagine you walk in and you're like, doc, my shoulder hurts. And the doc goes, yeah, oh, cool. You know what? Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., we're going to get in there and operate right on that shoulder. Right. And
Mhm.
you're like, what? Well, wait a minute. Shouldn't we do an MRI or a little
Yeah.
diagnostic first?
Yeah.
Like, no,
Yeah.
no, no, no. I got an opening, and it's like, so anyways, that's what I kind of liken it to.
So, last question I wanna ask you is, and I think this is important for, the small business owner listeners, is how how do you go out and find that top tier or gold star talent to be able to do some of these things that they should be taking over for you so that you can, as a CEO, grow the business? What's your recommendation to find the right people to be able to execute on, some of these items to
Sure.
actually build the business?
So this is going to sound like a little evasive, but it depends, right?
Mhm.
It depends. Are we hiring sales talent? Are we hiring operational talent? Right. So that would be the first thing. Like, because if it's sales talent, for example, like let's say it's owner dependent on, let's just say, I don't know, take a name, Joe. Joe or Mary is the best salesperson in the company. And now we've got to find a Joe or Mary to replace Joe or Mary, right? So, but the premise is similar, but the execution of the deliverable of how you do it is differently. Like
Mhm.
you cannot, folks, please, if you don't believe anything I said on this call, please this one, please. You do not want to hire a salesperson the same way you would hire somebody who is going to run your HR department or your operations department.
Right. Yep.
Okay. They are very different profiles. They are very different job classifications. And there's a process, or as people in other countries, a process listening to
Mhm.
this, right?
Mhm.
So, however, the basic tenet of this whole thing, Bo, is very much the same. Number one, we got to get super, super, super clear on who this person, their role in the job, what they specifically are going to do, and the type of person that's going to be able to achieve that.
Mhm.
So I'll use an example in sales. So when I was doing the thing with Tony and Chat on the front end, my sales team, we would run radio ads, and the radio ad would say, call in for a free report. And they would call in for a free report, and we would have a live answer to take their information,
Mhm.
send them the report. During that process, we would listen. And if it made sense, we would say, hey, you know what? Well, tell me a little more about your business. And we get talking, then we invite them to the next step.
Mhm.
Well, that was a $229 purchase. These people are driving down the highway, right? When they're calling in on these things on their cell phone. So we've got to get somebody to be able to take the credit card out of their pocket and give it to that person. That person's going to need a pretty high ego state in order to be able to do that. If they're so empathetic and the person says, "Hey, I'm driving down the highway," they're going to go, "Yeah, you're right. Don't take your eyes off the road," right?
Mhm,
Uh,
mhm,
I'll call you back later. What time would, that would be the higher empathy person. So, what's the job in detail and what's the type of person that really needs to be there? Okay?
mhm, mhm.
Then the next question, and this is super important, we've got to ask this question. Are we the right type of company that can attract that person?
That's key.
You know, is our Glassdoor ratings in the tank?
Mhm,
Or,
mhm,
if somebody's looking up for us and we're wanting a high profile individual, they're going to be attracted to us.
mhm,
And we've got to match those two things up. Now, if we're not, we can fix those issues and that's not a problem. And we can also keep recruiting and talking to people about as we're fixing the issues. It doesn't mean
mhm,
it's not one or the other, but it's really match.com at that point.
mm.
Really? Those are the first very important steps because if you don't get that down, Bo, how can you write the ad, the messaging, the ideal right fit buyer messaging to
Mm.
actually attract those right ideal candidates into your life?
Do you have, like, candidates do a DISC assessment or anything?
It depends on what you want to measure. So, like for sales, a disc assessment is pretty much not that useful.
Oh, really? Okay.
Because with a disc assessment, it's really about personality styles, right?
Mhm,
So I'm a
mhm.
dominant, I'm an influencer. Yeah,
Yeah.
that can say, well, okay, like for me, I'm a high I, high D,
Yeah.
right? They're
Mhm,
almost equal. And
mhm,
you can make an argument like, okay, that person is, a logical argument that that person's going to be right for selling because they're outgoing and they like people, whatever.
mhm.
But if you're selling engineering,
Yeah.
I'm not your guy, right? And
Right,
now,
right.
can I help engineering companies grow? Yes, I've done that. I worked with Edwards and Kelsey, which was like the seventh largest engineering company in the country at one point. And we got fantastic results. But again, if you need that certain type of, so disc could be okay to use in certain scenarios to understand. But here's the thing about disc that they don't really take into consideration. That's in a natural state. When people go into a stress state, they can
Mhm.
change their
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
You could have
Adaptive
a C,
style.
C that can immediately go into a D.
Yep. Yep.
And so I like to try to use specific assessments for what we're measuring. Like for sales, I want to know, do they have a consultative sales abilities? Do they have the will to sell? Do they
Mm.
have, the ability to do whatever we need them in sales? So I'll use a sales specific assessment for those type of things. And, then you can use a personality assessment as well in conjunction with that. So
Mhm.
assessments are definitely useful. Structured interviews, absolutely a must.
Yep.
Same questions, everybody, lead score, every single question.
Mhm.
Um, Ask the same questions. Don't go on gut feel. Gut feel
Mm.
will bite you every single time. Oh, I
Mm.
like this person. They probably can do this. No. Simulate the working conditions before you ever offer them the job. And
Interesting.
then see if they and throw some stressful stuff at them and see if they cave,
Yeah.
right? So it's a lot of little processes like that to do that, but it's a learnable skill. But the first two basic ones are non-movable. You've got to know what you want, know if you're able to achieve that,
Mhm.
with that, and then be able to write the ad to attract them.
Mm. Interesting. Hmm. Doug, this was phenomenal, man. I really enjoyed talking to you. Where can everybody find you if they want to get a hold of you, learn more about you, or work with you?
Well, thanks. I appreciate it. It's been a great interview. I appreciate your interview style and you as well.
Thank you.
They can reach out to me at Doug at CEO Sales Strategies.com, plural on the sales strategies, Doug at CEO Sales Strategies.com. Um, if they like LinkedIn, Doug Brown 123. If they want to reach out to me directly, no spam text, please. This is my cell phone number, 832-549-4836. The company number is 603-595-0303. Um, Bo, can I give something away on this?
Absolutely.
I have this course that I did. I call it the 2X course, and it's really about the math-based, metrics-based. How do you really predictably grow your revenue?
Mhm.
They can go and get that at ceosalesstrategies.com/ the number two, the letter X. And they can just download that. It's, a lot of people have said great things about that. So if they want to go get that, by all means, please do. So, Bo, people can get that at www.ceosalesstrategies/ the number two, X. And that's the 2X method, or the W sales method, that we put together for them to follow the math and the metrics all the way through.
That's awesome. I appreciate that. We'll be sure to add all of your contact info into the show notes, as well as that free template for them to use. And I hope some people got some value from this and reach out to you, because this what you're doing, I think, is more, especially small businesses, should be looking at doing.
Yeah, I wish when I started business out in the beginning, I knew
Mhm.
about this, right?
Mhm.
Because it would have saved me lots of stress, lots of time, and tons of money. I can tell you that as well.
Yes, that's for sure. Doug, thanks so much. I really look forward to doing this, and I appreciate you coming on.
Oh, Bo, thanks so much for having me here. I'm super grateful.
All right, buddy.